That's good. That's it.
Deeper than knowing God is being known by God. He has taken note on us and He has saved us. 1 Corinthians 8:3.
Remember we're dealing with the 16 deadly deeds, right? And today we're dealing with dullness. And I think we'll get to deadness. Remember the scripture you Satan comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Jesus says, I come that you may have life and life more abundantly. So what that means is God, Father, God the Son wants us to have life more abundantly, right? And Satan wants to take that from us, right? And we're not, 2 Corinthians 2:11 tells us, we are not ignorant of his devices. And one of his devices, or two we're going to talk about today, if we get that far, is dullness and deadness. Remember, he does not want you successful. He does not want you happy or full of joy. He steals those things from you. But if you know what your enemy is up to, then you know how to deal with your enemy, right? And so we're going to deal with this here. We're going to start with a commentary. And the commentary he's writing to the Church of Corinth. We're going to act like these two churches we talk about today is us. Okay? Because we have some folks in here that need to get out of that dullness. That is a spirit. It is a spirit that you don't need to carry with you. Do you understand what I'm saying? When we talk about the 16 deadly deeds, we're talking about adverse spirits. Okay, demonic activity and adverse spirit is wants to rob you from what Christ would have you to have. Am I making any sense? Amen. That they say. Amen, Pastor. Thank you. All right. Say amen to myself. Okay. Don't get mad at me. I'm simply the messenger. So since you already upset at me, some of you all in here are dealing with the spirit of dullness and deadness. I was going to say that. If you talk back to me, I'm a nice guy because I need attention. When I get attention, I'm pretty calm. When I don't get attention, then I have to do something to get attention. All right? So here we go. Amen? Oh, we're getting to that. So here's what we're getting ready to do, is we're getting ready to deal with what dullness is. You see? And dullness is something, and I do everything like it's a relationship, right? You want a relationship with Christ, isn't that right? That's right. And if you've been in a good relationship, you'll understand this. If you've been in a bad relationship, you'll understand this. All right, here we go with the commentary first, please.
There is no doubt about the spiritual condition of the readers. In a word, they suffer from dullness.
And he's talking about the church of Corinth. They suffered from dullness. And sometimes people think that the pastors are hard. Wait till you think what Paul says about this spirit of dullness in the church. All right?
Having adequate time to grow and change was not the problem. But the people, like many of us today, continue to manifest childlike behavior instead of growing to spiritual adulthood.
See, so what happens is people have childlike what? Behavior instead of growing into what? Spiritual adulthood. In other words, grow up. It's time to grow up, right? Right?
Sometimes in recovery, it takes a long time to see any progress.
See, sometimes the people in recovery will tell you it takes a while before you see progress. All right? But you got to keep working. Okay? Keep going, please.
But this passage suggests that growth is the norm, even though it is often slow.
See, sometimes you may be growing even though it's slow. But what happens is, if it's not the pace you think it should be, people quit.
Right.
Sometimes it's slow. And then sometimes you have somebody in your life that they're going through the process and you don't think they should be where they should be, which is none of your business. But you don't think they should be, but they're growing, but it's growing slower. We all don't grow spiritually at the same pace, but we all should be growing.
Amen. That's right.
All right?
If we don't see any progress in our recovery over time, we should seek to find out why.
If you're not growing, you ought to seek to find out why. If you're in a relationship, let's just bring this into a human relationship, let's say a marriage. If you're in a marriage and that marriage is not growing, you need to figure out why.
Amen.
Does that make sense? It doesn't matter any kind of relationship. You need to figure out why that relationship is not growing and when did it start dying. Because once it was alive.
That's right.
You see, right? Yeah. It can't be dying unless it wasn't alive. It was already dead, right? So if you ever been, y'all get what I'm talking about? So you need to sometimes, even in a regular relationship, you need to really check it out and understand, hey, this relationship is dying. All right? Then you need to go back and find out when it began to die. You see, in most cases, a person is sick before they die, right? So you got to go out and find out when you started out being sick at. Right? Before you get to that part, right? I'm talking about spiritually now. Go up here with me. If you had a relationship with God, remember when you first had a relationship with God, you couldn't help but go to church, and you wanted to go to church, and you loved to praise God and all those things, and now it's hard to get up on Sunday mornings because you got things to do. You need to go back and find out when that happened. You understand what I'm saying? I'm hearing everybody talk about America this and all the news things, and we got all these issues and all these problems in the United States of America. Well, we need to go back and find out when that happened. All right? And it goes back further than 4 years. All right? You understand what I'm saying? Okay? You see, when did we get sick? When did we get sick as a nation? All right? If the nation is dying, and that's what they say, if it's dying, then we need to go back and find out when did the sickness take place, right? Am I making sense? It's the same thing. Well, Paul is talking to this church here. He's talking to this church. It was a good church at one time. It was on fire at one time. But then all at once, they stepped into the spirit of dullness. Okay?
And dullness is a lack of interest.
Now, but the interest is not there. What happened to the interest? I'm really interested. I can't miss going to church or Bible study or Sunday school or having my devotion. What happened? You got to ask yourself what happened. What happened? Because I like to put everything in the human terms so you can understand. What happened when the time I couldn't wait to get off from work to get home, to be home?
That's right. Amen.
Right? Go ahead.
I think they got a lack of interest.
Amen, Walls. I'll talk to the rocks, all right? Go ahead. Oh, wait a minute, I ain't talking to the rocks, all right? Keep going.
It's a lack of interest.
I'm telling you, here we go. It's lack of, and that's what the word. It's a lack of interest. Why were you so interested before, and what happened that now you have a lack of interest? When did that start? You said, let's just talk about relationships. When did the kisses turn to hugs?
Okay, right.
Right? And then the hugs turn to, I'll see you this evening.
Amen.
Now you're getting it, right? Yeah, right. You understand what I'm talking about? We're talking about relationships. Same thing with God. We're in a relationship with Him. When did it turn to, I guess I got to go to church? All right. Okay.
Dullness is also mindless, foolish, silliness, weak-minded, irrational, and unreasonable.
When did all this stuff happen? When did the relationship between my sons and my daughters and I become unreasonable? When did that happen? Dullness got in there. Do you understand?
Amen.
All right, here we go.
In 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 1 through 3, he says, I, brethren, could not speak unto you as unto spiritual.
He was really upset. Paul was upset at this church. He said, I can't even speak to you as spiritual. That's what he's saying. Keep going.
But as carnal.
He said, I got to speak to you as carnal. Remember, carnal Christians, babes in Christ, mature Christians, and elite Christians. He said, I got to still talk to you as carnal Christians.
And even unto babes in Christ.
He says, even as babes in Christ. In other words, I'm still in the same spot. I'm very upset about it.
Yeah. I have fed you with milk and not with meat.
See, you can't grow just on milk. Pretty soon you're going to have to have some meat. Ask me why. Life will give you some things that milk can't handle.
That's right.
You're going to need some meat to handle it.
That's right.
And they say you're going to need some protein. So Paul was saying, I can't really teach you at the level I need to teach you because you're carnal or you got a dull spirit. So in other words, he can't help us to get to the next part of our lives.
Amen.
All right? And there's some people in here tell you, if you ain't had trouble in your life, you keep living. There'll be some things that milk can't hang up. You got to have something a little bit stronger. Right?
Amen. But again, he says, I fed you with milk and not with meat, and hitherto you were not able to bear it. Neither yet now are you.
And he's really upset because he says, I want to take you to the next level, the next spiritual level, but you can't handle it. He's talking to a church. You see? He's talking to a church. He's really sick of this church. He said, how long must I feed you milk? When are you going to be able to handle the meat of the gospel? All right? You know, like I say, that you see a lot of these churches, not all of them, a lot of churches now, you go to church as a pep rally. You see, you can have a good time for about 45 minutes to an hour and a half, but it ain't going to help you when you step out there and you have to deal with the issues of life. All right?
It says in verse 3 that for ye are yet carnal, for whereas there is among you envying and strife.
Let's talk about you're yet carnal, there's envy and strife, division. And this is what he's talking about. Not only, we see this in churches. I hope we don't have that in this church. I haven't heard about it. Won't probably hear about it. But if I do hear about it, we're going to stop and get some meat out. And we're not going to walk around here like babies. You know, you can only deal with them so long. But doesn't this sound like this country? Right now, the strife and division among Christians.
Amen.
Denominations. All right? He would not be happy with it. All right?
So Paul asked, are ye not carnal and walk as men?
He said, you're carnal when you walk with men. You got a dull spirit. You got a dull spirit. We don't want to deal with that. All right, let's go to the next
tells us in Hebrews chapter 5, verse 11 through 14 from the King James, of whom we have many things to say, and hard to be uttered, seeing ye are dull of hearing.
He's saying, Paul said, I'd rather preach the gospel of meat, but you can't handle the gospel of meat because you got a dull hearing. I remember, I don't know how they do it now, but my mother used to say, are you listening to me?
Come on.
She said, yes, ma'am. Do you hear me? Because sometimes folks are listening, they ain't hearing. Let me go over here, maybe I get sometimes folks are listening, but they ain't hearing. So here's the question this morning. I'm going to ask you all. Are y'all listening to me? Yes. Are you hearing me? Yes. All right. He was upset at this church because they were listening, but they weren't hearing. They had a dull spirit. So they weren't getting it. Sometimes in church, it drives me. When I got such wonderful, beautiful people sitting in the pews, and I watched their lives crumble and fall apart right before them. And all of the answers that they needed were right there in the pulpit. It was right there in Bible study. It was right there in Sunday school. The problem was they were sitting there listening, but not hearing, because they had a dull ear. All right?
Pastor, the voice says they were dull of understanding.
And the voice says it was dull of understanding. Where's your understanding is? Let me tell you something. The gospel is true. If we would stay with the gospel and the principles in the gospel, we wouldn't be in the condition our condition is in. As individuals, as a church, or as a country. Because the gospel is true. Do you understand?
Amen.
Am I doing all right? Yes. Now I want us to have a ear that understands. The Bible says, he that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
That's right.
God's talking to us. He's not talking to me putting the lesson together. He's talking to you now. You can't make mistakes if you're in the Spirit. You only make mistakes when you get outside the Spirit. The big one. In my house sometimes when I say something, Linda and Mike, she says, you're in the Spirit to do this. Get in this one. That's the big one. If you read the Bible, that little one, the big one is him.
Right.
So sometimes she has to remind me of which one I'm in. She does that quite often. I'm like, but here we go.
He says in verse 12 that, for the time you ought to be teachers.
See, there's a time the best teachers are not the people in the pulpit, but the people in the pews. When people see you do, how you act and react on your job. When you're out, you remember what character is? Character is who you are in the dark. When nobody's watching, that's who you are. See, here's the whole thing. Read that part again. Now do it. There's a time that you ought to be teachers. Teachers. We should be teachers. Mature Christians are teachers. They teach carnal Christians how to become mature. Carnal Christians teach non-Christians how to at least be carnal. That's called being saved. All right, then the next step.
Then he says, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God.
And one of the things that I didn't like, I hate to see they have to go over the same thing again. Anybody understand that for me? Let's do that. Is any parents in here? Yes. Did you hate to have to repeat yourself? Yes. If God is your parent, he won't like to repeat himself either. You see, in the old days, they don't do it now because the kids are best friends. But in the old days, they used to say, let me say that again. Some of y'all grew up in the old days. Yeah, you got one time to get it, one time to hear it, and one time to do it. All right? When I get to heaven, I'll tell my mother and father, I'm going to tell them they had it all wrong. Y'all were supposed to be my friend. Okay, you get the message, right? Yeah, with friends you can do that. Parents, no. All right, here we go. And God is our parent. He doesn't like repeating himself. All right?
He says, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat.
Still drinking milk. Not me. There ought to be a time in your life where you get a new diet. There ought to be a time in your life when you get a new diet. You can't handle nothing because you ain't eating nothing. All right?
Paul says it this way, that for everyone that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe.
Babes can't handle adult problems. Sometimes, can I say it? Ladies, can I say it? You say you sometimes have to put big girl panties on. Y'all heard that before. It is amazing to me when you get in the pulpit, you can't say, well, I can, but you can't say certain things. Sometimes that's life. Oh yeah, that's life. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes you got to man up. Period. But you can't man up if you keep drinking milk. You got to have meat to man up. All right, you understand what I'm talking about? Paul's talking to a church. He's trying to warn them, and so they can be mature enough, so when things happen in their life, they can make a stand. You see, sometimes when things happen in their world, things happen in people's life, they fall apart because they don't have any spiritual muscle. You can't get spiritual muscle from milk. You get spiritual muscle from meat. And I'm going to tell you one thing. Say, what's that, Pastor? Trouble will find you. Trouble will find you. Sooner or later, you're going to have to deal with some issues. So you need to eat meat. So when that time comes, you have the spiritual muscle to be able to make a stand. All right?
And that's what Paul's saying in verse 14 when he says, but strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age.
To mature adult people. Sometimes you're going to have to be mature because you got mature problems coming up. You understand? It ain't about those little bitty things. Somebody didn't give you a grandparent, right? Now it's got to be like sickness, death, kids with bad behavior, right? All of these things, it's going to happen all of them. Sooner or later, you're going to have something. You understand what I'm saying? Sooner or later, you're going to do something in your life. That's just how it works. I'm just trying to help you understand that you need to start building yourself up by eating spiritual food so that when it comes, you can make a spiritual stand. All right?
Pastor, what you're saying is that Paul says it this way. Even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil.
See, when you got that, then you can discern what's good and evil. When you have that, you can discern what's good and evil because you know the meat of the gospel, and the meat of the gospel will teach you what is good and evil. Because some things look good that are not good. Some things look good for you that are not good for you. Huh? Somebody, y'all know what I'm talking about? I'll get dirty if you don't say something, all right? Okay? You better know. So if you say amen, you understand it. Some of us have ate and drinking from that bitter milk. Sometimes folks get spoiled milk, sour milk. Mess up your stomach, doesn't it, right? Okay. So we done with those. We moved on to Deadness. Yeah. You already go home, right? I'm sweating, all right? What's wrong? I'm sweating. All right, but we're going to deal with deadness. And one of the bad things is deadness is simply unchecked dullness. Deadness is simply unchecked dullness. If you don't check dullness, the next thing you know, that dullness is going to turn into deadness. You understand what I'm talking about? Am I doing all right? Yeah. All right.
Deadness is also incapable of being stirred emotionally or intellectually.
Right, see, because you know, I go both ways so you can understand. If you've ever been in a relationship, let me kind of keep this clean up a little bit. Read that again so I won't go crazy, right?
Incapable of being stirred emotionally.
So when you wouldn't want to be in a relationship, would you? When that person was incapable of being stirred emotionally. Am I talking to a bunch of corpse out here? See, if you're in a relationship, you want to be stirred emotionally, right? Yes. All right, you know what I'm talking about. Well, so does God.
That's right.
He wants your emotions. He wants your feelings. That's why they call it praise and worship. Praising is what? It's emotionally being stirred up and feeling that intimacy with God and the Holy Spirit. Are you doing all right with me? Yes. All right. And intellectually, right?
That's right.
Intellectually. Have you ever been with someone that hadn't been there with you? Yeah. You just know. Or somebody with you and you weren't there with them, right? See, that's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about. In church, but not of the church. You know, come on. Sitting in church, but not of the church, right? Right? Knowing God God, but God not knowing you because you don't identify him through the emotion. God is what? A spirit, and he must what? Worship in the spirit itself. Okay, there you go. So some people are sitting in the pews, but they ain't there. They can't worship God because God is a spirit. You got to be in the spirit to understand it. You can't be in the spirit if you keep drinking milk. You got to eat some meat. All right.
Deadness is also lacking power to move, feel, or respond. It's also numb.
Yeah, you're numb.
Private
Good
life.
morning. No, that's how y'all do. You don't do that. It's like, good morning, honey. Good morning, dear. Morning. That's called what? Deadness. You see what I'm saying? That's the same time we do the same thing here. Some of you all in here understand what I'm talking about. If you would have known better, you'd have done better. I'm trying to help you spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally, and actually in every aspect of your life. When that deadness gets in there, you're in trouble. Because it's, you know, as long as it's life, something to hold on to, you can revive it. Once it gets dead, it's done. And then, you know, that's just like, you know, I hate to say this, it's like some marriages, they're just over. There's nothing left, there's nothing there to bring it back alive again. We don't want to get there, do we? All right.
Pastor, deadness is also deprived of life.
Deprived of life. The worst thing to be is around a human being that doesn't love life. Live life as if you're going to die tomorrow. Learn today as if you're going to live forever. That's Gandhi. That's how you live. I enjoy my life. I enjoy my life. I live life, but I enjoy the life that I have as a Christian. You understand what I'm talking about? You all were doing it a few minutes ago. Your hands is up, it's feeling good. How you going to treat him when you leave him? Good. Isaac and them singing in the praise team when I go to God in prayer. Y'all call. Are you going to be excited when you go to God in prayer? When you're up, that's working you down. You see, life is like this. Here's how I live my life. I treat my ups and downs the same because they're both just temporary. You better learn that real good. Right? But as long as there's just enough life in the situation and circumstance, it can come back and breathe again. All right?
Paul says it this way in James chapter 2, verse 17 to 20. That even so faith, if it hath no works, is dead.
The worst thing that, now we're talking about, Paul says, he don't care nothing about your faith. If it ain't working, it's dead. Has anybody ever wanted a job, stayed home, somebody knocked on your door? Right, I hear people all the time, the Lord is going to give me a job. Look, if you wait on the Lord, somebody come knock on your door. No, God's going to give me a job, but I got to do the works. I got to do the footwork. Faith without works is dead. You see, I want to be healthy. You eating healthy? You exercising? You eating healthy? Healthy? All right, right. You got to do what I'm saying? You got to do the work, right? You want to be smart, you want to be wise, you got to do the work. You got to go to school, you got to learn, you got to read, you got to study. You see? You want a big house, you want a car, you want finance, you got to work. Yeah, just look at your money and see if it grows.
That's right.
Okay, faith without works is dead. This is what the Bible says. Don't care about how much faith you have, but you're doing the work. Men, you want to be healthy and live a long life? Go to the doctor. Get your physical. We're the worst about it, right? Isn't that right? Yeah, we're still just praying God. No, God gave us doctors, right? I'm talking to men because we are horrible with it. That's what he gave us doctors for, right? So I do the work. All right. You want a good marriage? Yes. You can have faith. God, please let my marriage be happy and full of joy. You better do the work. It takes work. Come on, married folks and ex-married folks. It takes work to stay in a marriage. I figured you all would figure that out.
He goes on to say, yea, a man may say, thou hast faith, and I have works.
So, Paul, I'm in My James.
Deacon James.
He says, I don't hear all that talk. He said, I want to see your works. You remember years ago, there used to be a game called Lemonade, show me your trade, and then you do something. That's before we had all these TV and this, you don't want to get and show you works or something, you just do something like that. Well, that's what I'm talking about here. I want nobody to come up here and tell me what they're doing. I want to see what you're doing.
That's right.
And I can look at you and see what you're doing. You know, people come up here, I love the Lord. No, I love the Lord. You heard my time. Please, my head wrong. Now, trouble lies. That's what I'm talking about. Let me see you. Show me something.
Amen.
That's right. The old folks, you say the early bird gets the worm. But I try to go to God before y'all wake up. I get up every morning. I'm serious. You know, before he gets tired. I say, Lord, here I am. What would you have me to do today? Then it will work. All right?
Paul says, show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works.
Paul said, show me something that. He said, I ain't got to tell you I have faith. He said, look at me. James said, look at me. See, some people don't talk. They walk the walk. You can look at them and know how much faith they got. Okay.
Amen.
He says, thou believest that there is one God. Thou does well. The devil also believes and trembles.
Oh, I love the Lord. I know the Lord. Satan knows the Lord. That ain't no big thing. You see? So I go to church. Sunday, he goes. Sunday, guess what he is? He in church. You know, Satan don't miss church. He ain't like Christian. Boy, he gonna go to church. He gonna come to church early. See what we can get to fall asleep. He see what we can get to talk too much and disturb other folk. See what we can get, we can get to distract. Oh, he goes to church. You know, the devil one time, the son was looking for him, and he was looking for his father. He said, I can't find my father, I can't find my father. And so he went to one of the other devils in charge. He said, I can't find my father. And he told him, don't you know today, Sunday, he's in church. That's right. He's in there now. Want somebody not to hear my lesson? Okay. I'm almost done. Y'all get to say it. All right, keep going.
He finishes in verse 20 and says, but wilt thou know, O vain man or woman, that faith without works is dead?
Faith without works is dead. You got to do the work. You got to do the work. Give it over Revelations. Then we'll be done.
We're going to read from chapter 3, verse 1 through 3, and verse 6 from the King James. It says,
And he's talking to the church. And he's talking to this church, because remember the 7 churches. And he's talking to this church, and we don't want to be this church. Because this church picked up this spirit of deadness. All right, here we go.
he says, I know thy works, that thou hast a name, that thou livest, and art dead.
He's talking to this church. This church was a big church, man. It was going all good, had a big old name. He said, but you did. And he ain't talking about making noise. He's talking about how they were living.
Right.
You understand?
Amen.
You see, it's kind of like, a husband, a father, because I like bringing it down here. He's married. He's bringing in what they call, years ago, ends meet, but not a good husband, not a good father. That's what he's talking about this church. He said, you got the title, but you ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're dead. All right.
Then he goes on to say, be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die.
So what you got to do, remember I told you, sometimes you got to go back and look and take inventory of yourself. And take a look at what you have, and you better strengthen it before you what? Before you die. He's talking to the church.
That's right.
You in the church, or people in the church. He said you got to be watching. Let's talk about your relationship with God. You got to be watching your relationship with God. You better strengthen your relationship with God, because certain things will happen to you and you will die.
therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and
He
repent.
said, hold on to what you have. Repent. Repent will help put the life back in something that was dying. Repent will help you put back the life into something that was dying.
That's right.
Sometimes your Christian walk is dying. You need to repent and put life back in it. In a relationship, sometimes you got to go back and put the life back in it.
That's right.
Or it'll die. All right, does that make sense?
If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come.
And he's telling his church, you better be careful. He says, I might come when you're sleeping. You see what I'm saying? We don't want that to happen in Christ alone. And I love verse 5 in Message.
It says, conquerors will march in the victory parade.
What are we over here? What are we over here? What are we over here? That means we want to march in what? The victory. You can't have a victory unless you have a fight. Sometimes life is a fight. Sometimes you got to fight your way through it. But if you stay, if your faith, if you hang on to your faith, you'll be a conqueror. Now listen to me where I'm at right now, okay? You have the ability to be conquerors.
That's right.
Everybody has the ability to be a conqueror. But you're going to have to fight.
That's right.
You're going to have to put up a fight. It's kind of like, I use Mike Tyson all the time when we talk about fighting. He was his best. When they talk about, he said, yeah, everybody has a plan until they get hit. But conquerors, we can take the hits.
That's right.
Because we know the most important thing is we're going to one day march in the victory celebration. That's why we're Christians.
That's right.
Amen to that. If you want to march in the victory parade, you know what? You're going to fail in life. Do you know that one time Jesus was talking to Peter, and he said, Peter, the devil likes to sift you as wheat, but I'm going to pray to the Father that your faith fail you not.
That's right.
You can find that in the scripture yourself. So what he's saying, Peter, you're going to fall, and you're going to fail, but I'm going to pray to the Father, the Heavenly Father, that your faith don't. See, so some of you in here are failing. It's okay. It's okay. Keep your faith. Oh, you're going to lose some battles. Yeah, you're going to lose. You'll win the war, but you're going to lose some battles. Do you understand what I'm saying? You see, and your faith will help you win the battles. Okay? You see, your faith will help you handle losing the battles.
Right.
But your faith will ultimately help you to win the war. And he is this, and I do this. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying unto the churches. And all in agreement said, Amen.